Salams and thank you for joining me in part number 7 of this wonderful book, volume 2, The Dimensions of Islam. And we're looking at the forgotten path of knowledge by Maulana Abdul Aleem Siddiqui al-Qadiri, the roving ambassador of Islam. And my thanks to Sheikh Abdul Al-Hadi al-Qadiri, the president of the Imam Ahmad Rida Academy, who has given me permission to go through this book. And you can please get copies of this book from the Imam Ahmad Rida Academy from Devon in KwaZulu-Natal, right? So let's continue with this. The question now arises, is man only an aggregate of bones and flesh? If it is so, even the dead person has got flesh and bones, but we call him a dead body and do not consider him to be a human being. Do not consider him to be a person. Our very first thought about a dead human body makes us feel that there was something essential which is no longer there. That something was life. But we are sure that it is not only the flesh and bones, but life also, which combine together that thing be properly called man. Now, what is life? When we speak this word, we are confronted with a number of different conceptions. And the fact is that we, in spite of all our scientific researches, have so far failed in discovering the reality of life. The word soul is only a name. What the soul actually is and how it is to be defined, the scientific world has not succeeded so far in telling us that. And this is very true. And let's go very briefly to try and understand very, very briefly. As what I said, I like to keep things simple, so nothing complicated. So that please share this with the Gen Z and the youth and for all of us, just as a refresher or reminder. What is the difference between the heart, and at least the body and the soul? First rule, right? So let's see what happens at the time of birth. Very simple, not a complicated diagram. I will go step by step slowly through all of these things here. The blue part here is the body. Very simple, right? That we know is the body. The green part is the soul. Are we clear on that? There's only there's three colors here on this board. Everywhere where you see the blue, that refers to the body. Everywhere where you see the green, that refers to the soul, right? Are we clear on that? Very simple. Now, when a mother becomes pregnant, before we get to the mother being pregnant, we know very clearly that the body is made out of matter, organic matter, and that organic matter is made out of atoms and molecules. And that originally has been created from sand and water. Now, anything that has got an atom in it, anything that has got matter, an atom, right? Anything that got an atom, you can subject it to an X-ray. You can do MRI scans. You can do functional MRI scans. You can do 3D scans. You can do blood tests. You can examine it with all your five. You can touch it. You can smell it. You can see it. That you can collect empirical data. That means the human body. You can touch it. You can taste it. You can take blood tests. You can take it for X-rays. The bone. You can check it up left, right, and center, because it is in the earthly dimension. There is a dimension here. One is called the dimension of the world. So let me remove the red arrows here for the time being. There's a dimension here which we can't see. Right. This is the earth dimension of the earth. Everything on earth, you can examine it with a scientific method. You can subject it to experiments. You can take it to the laboratory. You can do research. So it's not only the human body. You can examine an elephant. You can examine a cow. You can examine a fish. You can examine a motor car. You can study a mountain. You can do geology. You can study a whale. You can study the ocean. You can study how the rivers are flowing. Because anything that you can taste and touch, you can examine it. You can take a rose. You can take it to the laboratory. You can do tests on it. You can cut the rose up, put it under the microscope. You can say, oh, look at the capillary flow. Look how the water is going up into the rose. You can examine the tree roots. So anything on the planet Earth that you can touch, taste, smell with any of your 5 sensory organs. You got the organ of seeing, hearing, smelling, taste, and touch. So if you can taste something, you can put it in a laboratory. If you can smell a perfume, you can put it in a laboratory. If you can hear a sound, like for example, the bat's echolocation, you can hear the sound, you can check it in laboratory. And if you can see something, that means that's a scientific method. So everything on Earth is known as the terrestrial dimension. But there's another the scientists only focus on this. So everything on the left-hand side, the scientists are only concerned about what they can see, what they can put in the laboratory. If it does not go into the laboratory, the scientists are not interested in that. They say it does not exist. Now, what Islam teaches us is that there's another dimension, which is known as the spiritual dimension. The spiritual dimension is not the scientific dimension. The spiritual dimension is everything on the right-hand side, everything to do with this green. In the spiritual dimension, you have the angels, you have the soul, you have all of those things. Now, the thing about the spiritual dimension, you cannot take a blood test. You cannot take an X-ray. It won't be shown up on an X-ray. You can't take a blood test. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't feel it. You can't do nothing. You can't say, oh, you know what? There's an angel. Let's take a photo of an angel. You can't. It's impossible. You can't say, hey, you know what? I went through the airport. There was a security scanner, and let's put an angel. Maybe we can pick up an angel. No. You see sometimes in movies they say, oh, you know what this weird, we did some electricity and we found this angel. No, all of that is nonsense. Because if it's in the spiritual dimension, means you cannot ever, it is impossible to put it to the scientific method. And that is why the scientists are feeling very frustrated. They are thinking that, oh, you know, if we cannot measure it by science, meaning it doesn't exist, but that's not the reality. So remember, there's two dimensions. One is a dimension of matter, atoms and molecules, which is our body. And the other dimension is the dimension of the soul. Soul, you can't test it, you can't see it. But this is what happens. When the mother becomes pregnant, so let's look first at this point here, right? So the mother becomes pregnant. So for the first 40 days, nothing happens. The baby is growing, the fetus is growing. Then another 40 days pass, the fetus grows bigger. Another 40 days passes, then the fetus grows bigger. Only after the 120 days, right? Which is 3 is 12, 4 months, right? At 4 months, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then sends an angel to put the soul inside the body. And with it, the destiny is written, his rozi, his rizq is written, things about him is written, what kind of character, what kind of personality, all of those things are written for him. So, before that 40 days, the body is on its own, the soul is on its own, they are not joined together. Only after 120 days, the soul enters the body. Then for the rest of its time on earth, the body and the soul are together. The body and the soul are together. Then at the time of death, the Malik al-Maut, the angel of death, comes and he takes the soul out of the body. Right? So I had my red pen somewhere. So the red pen means that after 120 days, the angel puts the soul into the body. And then for all your life on earth, remember, the body is just a motor car. Think of it as a motor car. Think of it as a Rolls Royce. Think of your body as a magnificent Rolls Royce. You got a Rolls Royce, right? You got a RR. And now the soul is the driver. The soul is going to decide what direction you're going to take. The soul got the free choices to make. The free will is going to decide whether it can, by the choices it makes, the soul can fly higher than the angels or fall even lower than the worst of beasts on the planet Earth. At the time of death, the evil people or the disbelievers, their souls are taken out very roughly. They're torn roughly out of the body. But then the soul of the believers are taken out so smoothly and gently. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records it. Allah tells the people, the angel, to record it, the good souls in Illiyin and the bad souls in Sijjin, and the punishment starts already. Now here the question comes in. What happens? You see, so at the time of death, the soul is taken out and the body dies. But is that always the case? No. When you take out the soul, do you die? Not necessarily. We know that when Malik al-Maut takes the soul out, you're dead. Here's my question for you. Allah tells us in the Quran that every single night, Allah takes your soul out. So why don't you die? Isn't it? Your soul every night is gone. Why don't you die? Because there's a third component, which we haven't spoken here. You have the body, you have the soul, and then you have the breath. You have the breath, which is the life. The breath is the life. So you need three things. So at the time when the baby is, so let me get another pen here. I don't have another pen. Let me try this. I'll just try and off my. When the baby is conceived, when the sperm and egg meet, right? Then you have the body and you have the breath. What do you call it? The breath. I'll just call it a B here. The body and the breath. The B stands for breath, right? Body and the breath, the baby is beating, then the soul comes into it. So when you're alive on earth, you have the body, you have the soul, and you have the breath. Then at night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your soul out, but your breath is still there. Your breath keeps the body alive. So then you're breathing at night, but your soul is gone. Your soul is gone for a nice holiday or a tour, right? But your breath keeps you alive. But at the time of death, Malik al-Maut takes out your soul and he takes out your breath. When Malik al-Maut takes out your soul and breath, then no ICU in the world gonna help you. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah.